Welcome to the Fantasy Football Funhouse. And if you look around the Funhouse, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see two faces there. I'm not going to introduce them yet, but they are not the faces of Kevin. They are not the faces of Steve. But you still have me, the most important member of the Fantasy Football Funhouse. And Steve is not here because Steve had his second child, beautiful Posey Ann Marcus. So congratulations to Steve and Chelsea and big brother Tucker. Kevin's not here. We just don't care why. Okay? Nobody needs Kevin. It's not important. But I have a special treat for some of you people out there. If you were original falafel listeners, I'm talking way back in the days of falafel, I figured I would go get myself a couple of hosts that joined the show from episode 1. I was able to get one of them. We asked Ryan to join us tonight. Ryan could not make it. You know, Ryan's busy. He's in the Navy. That's the reason he was no longer with us. But I do have Mr. Brandon DePau with me tonight. What is up, Brandon?
What's up, Sal? They couldn't keep me away from you guys forever, so.
No, it was only like maybe 2.5 years, but you found
ancient history, but
you found your way back in. For those of you guys who don't know, Falafel originally was a 5-man crew: Steve, me, Kevin, Brandon, and Ryan. And Brandon is a diehard Ohio State and Green Bay Packer fan. Talk to me about my boy Jeremy Rucker and how things are going at Ohio State.
I swear he's going to have a restraining order from me at some point because, God, the kid is just awesome. I can't wait till he gets some serious play time. But Buckeyes overall, I'm worried about the defense a little bit. I don't think we're going to be able to compete so well in the playoffs, especially against those higher octane offenses. I mean, the offense looks great to me. But then again, we haven't played that many high quality defenses quite yet. But no, I'm head over heels excited for Rucker.
Very cool. We'll get into your other love, the Green Bay Packers, a little bit later when we get into the NFL stuff. Also joining us is not an old school member of the podcast, but a definite old school original member of the Falafel House gang from the Fantasy Life app. They call him Tony. It's Anthony Reamer. What is up, Tony? Thank you for joining us on the show tonight. How you been, pal?
It's Reimer. It's a strong German name. I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Hoping to not screw this up, but it's not exactly like Kevin and Steve set high bars. So
no, they definitely don't. And I went to school with a Reamer. That's why I always assume it's Reamer. And I think I go through this with you in the chat all the time. I say Reamer, Reimer. Whatever I say, it usually bothers your wife. We all know that.
Yeah, she don't even know your name. She just knows that you're the guy that loves the sound of his own voice.
So Tony, I like to tease. So Tony is a guy who, one of the reasons I invited you on is because Tony always has nice things to say to me in private chats, but then breaks my balls in a real chats. But Tony's been very supportive with me and the stuff I've been doing lately, and he's always a good friend. And he sends me a lot of great trade offers, and I usually end up accepting him. He definitely makes good deals.
I love to trade. Anybody that's in a league with me, I love to trade.
He's big on that. Maybe we'll get into some of that stuff later. We'll talk about some of that stuff later. Right. Tony is a Chicago Bears fan. So we got two NFC North guys here to duke it out. Let's start with Tony. Let's start with the Bears. They are coming off of a bye week. But they're playing beautiful, but they have obviously a fantastic defense now that my team decided to just hand you guys with the greatest defensive player in the league, or at least the top 3 defensive player in the league. But going into the bye week, they had an offensive explosion. Do you think that we could continue to see this type of Mitchell Trubisky, or was that just a perfect, like the moon and the ocean and everything lined up for that game for Trubisky?
That was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I love Trubisky, like what I saw from him in that game, but I'm not expecting that a lot. I just need Trubisky to be average. If he's average, the Bears are a playoff team. I think he's good enough that you'll get fantasy output from like the other weapons on there. I like to see the involvement that Cohen got. Unfortunately, it came at the expense of Jordan Howard, so I'd like to see both of them get involved a little bit more. But I know you're not going to see that type of offensive explosion from them every week. I think it probably helped his confidence, just to be able to do that against an NFL defense. So if you're in like a super flex format, stuff like that, I've got a couple shares of Trubisky there. You can start him there. But other than that, he's a streamer against horrible defenses. Tampa might as well not even have a defense out there. I think everybody's going to put up numbers against them.
Yeah, I own 0 Trubisky stock. Shockingly enough. But you know who doesn't like Trubisky at all? Steve. Steve can't wait to take a shot. He can't wait to take a shot at Trubisky every time he's going. So you mentioned Tariq Cohen, and a few weeks ago he was getting little to no usage, and it was a lot of Jordan Howard. And then we heard the coach even say Jordan Howard probably needs more touches. And then last week, it just seemingly changed over. But I think that's a smart way to go. I think that they need to add him to the offense. How has Allen Robinson looked for you? I mean, we saw the one game where he just looked like the only target on the field. That's calmed down in recent weeks. Do you think that the ball starts to get spread out throughout the year? Does Allen Robinson remain a wide receiver too going forward, or are you comfortable starting him on a weekly basis?
I'd be fine starting Robinson on a weekly basis. I think Gabriel is going to be involved enough that he's just going to be annoying. I don't know that you're ever going to feel comfortable starting Taylor Gabriel. But I think he's a wide receiver too, and every now and then he's going to have a wide receiver 1 week. But, yeah, I'd be fine starting him. He's the number one in this offense. The Nagy schemes things to make him the primary read on quite a few plays. And he's looked like Allen Robinson. He's out there. He's making plays down the field. He's got high pointing the ball. Like, he looks like the Allen Robinson we saw in Jacksonville. So I'd be fine starting him.
I have an unhealthy amount of Taylor Gabriel stock in Dynasty leagues. It's like when I made some bad decisions with startup leagues, I seemingly grabbed Taylor Gabriel wherever I could. And I like the usage that he was getting early in the year. If it's PPR, he's a sustainable weekly flex play, I think, at this point.
Yeah, and your multi-flex leagues, like Pigs leagues that are more deep, or the Falafel Dynasty League, those leagues that you 14-team leagues with a couple flex spots, he'll be usable in that. But your standard like 12-team, 14-team redraft, I don't know that you're ever going to feel real comfortable starting him. If you're starting Taylor Gabriel, you probably got bigger problems.
I definitely have bigger problems, and one of them is Brandon DePaul. What's up, Brandon? Back with us here. Brandon, Green Bay Packers. Not off to the start you had hoped. So where the Bears fans are excited about the NFC North right now, Packer fans, not so much.
No, not so much. And it seemed like an uphill battle all week this weekend. I mean, the highlight of it all would be Mason Crosby completely not knowing the right side of his foot. And like, it was just every time. It's like, I can't watch it locally because I'm in Ohio. And I was telling you earlier that I wasn't able to watch a lot of the game. And anytime I pulled up on Red Zone, it was to watch Mason Crosby completely shank every kick. And I'm just like, God, we are not winning this game at all.
Yeah, he only managed to give up 13 possible points. Not like I would have changed. Yeah. Oh, yes, they're right. They would have won.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would have definitely changed the game scheme going forward and all that. They would have got the running. They would have at least kept the running game going, which is my main beef with McCarthy right now. I used to be a huge McCarthy apologist and defender, but it's about at its end, and I think we need a new coach. I'm really tired of it because even though he has a clear, more talented running back in Aaron Jones, he absolutely refuses to give him a higher percentage of the carries. Now that may change throughout the rest of the season, but it's like he wants to be able to utilize all the running backs, which I get. I mean, Montgomery does very well in the pass game. He's not necessarily the best in between the tackles runner, but I mean, he can break a tackle or two and make a wiggle and move and get some yardage. But Jamal Williams just doesn't look like the same running back he did towards the end of the year when he caught a little bit of fire. So, and Aaron Jones has. I mean, he's got like I think it was like 6.1 I saw today, yards per carry average. And yeah, I just really wish that you could use him. And the comment that really got me off was, hey, said there's more.
Oh, take it easy. You're getting sorry. Don't be getting off in here.
Us cheeseheads, when we get excited, there could be explosions of
cheese, I hope.
But what he said is that there's more to the running back position than running the ball. I'm like, well, no shit. I know the biggest beef of his with Aaron Jones is that he's not as effective in the pass pro off blocking for Aaron Rodgers, but it's like you don't need the block when he's got the ball in his hand.
By the way, he's also missed 0 blocking assignments since he's been back. When he's been in there, he's missed 0 so far. Probably an overblown thing that once you get into the NFL, you got to keep, you got to give the guy a chance to get out of that. But the snaps this week were 33, 29, 22, and Aaron Jones was even behind Ty Montgomery this week.
Ridiculous.
Do you know how many times Ty Montgomery lined up outside this week with all the wide receivers missing? 0.
Yeah.
He did not even play outside.
Ridiculous.
So he was in the backfield over Aaron Jones 7 more times in this game.
Personally, as a Bears fan, I want to see McCarthy stick around. I've said for probably 2 or 3 years now, I've said that he needs to give half of his paycheck every week to Aaron Rodgers because he's the only reason he has a job. The only difference between Hugh Jackson and Mike McCarthy is Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Aaron Rodgers because, he passed for 422 yards this past week. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, Brandon. It doesn't seem like it's the same player out there to me. 442 and 3 touchdowns is a great fantasy day. But there was plays where he was getting caught from behind where he seemed like he had no idea that someone was chasing him down. Mm-hmm. Do you think it's the injury? Do you think he's not fully healed yet?
Well, they took him off the list. For what I saw, he looked fine, just fine moving on it, not hobbling it or favoring it as much as he did the past 2 games, especially when he came back in the game week 1 and, sorry, Tony, came back on the Bears. But, his awareness, this last game, his awareness seemed to be, it's like when he rolled out to the right, it was the one of the fumble plays where he basically got strip sacked. You're right. It was like he thought he was 100% clear and la la land, just looking downfield, and then bam, when he normally can just feel those sort of things, just like a quarterback feels a pocket. But as far as looking different, different. It might be just how the offense is rolling right now. We've seen to get off the very slow starts in years past, but it's a little bit concerning right now for me.
All right, before we move on from the Packers, let's talk about the wide receivers. We got to see one of the rookies finally get highlighted this weekend, Marquise Valdes-Scantling, right? I believe it's too many names there. He led all Green Bay wide receivers in snaps. He was on the field for 77 of the 81 snaps. He ran 47 of those out of the slot. He seemed to catch everything that was thrown in his direction. He looked very polished for a rookie who hasn't been on the field much. What do you think this says for Cobb, who right now can't seem to get back on the field? Geronimo Allison has looked good, but do you think it's time with this rookie looking good and Allison looking good? Is that maybe it's time to move on from Cobb? He's never recaptured what he did that first year. He had a nice week 1 this year, but has disappeared again since. Do you think that this kid is he somebody we should be adding in redraft leagues? And you think that he's somebody that can make a difference this year?
I certainly think so. When we drafted 3 rookie wide receivers.
By the way, I have him in falafel if you want
to. I'm set for a run, but actually not really. But as far as these rookie wide receivers go, Marquez is definitely the one I pegged as the favorite to do more damage and get more usage early on, or at least this season. Equanimeous St. Brown definitely did a fantastic job in this game. I think there was one big 54-yard play. So that was nice to see a little bit playmaking ability from him. Jamon Moore is completely useless. I can't believe that he was the first one that we took. And then the last 2 that we took were just rised above him. It's like wasted draft capital. But
Equanimeous was really the guy coming out of the 3 that was targeted to go earlier. He slipped a lot in the draft, and
he was the last one drafted out of the
3. I was surprised how far he fell, but I think as we got closer to the draft, some stuff that started to come out on him. Nothing, no bad things like personal things, but just his style of play. But yeah, I'm very happy with what I saw at MVS. I had him in a lot of DFS drafts this past week. Made a little bit of money, a little bit.
A little bit.
Paquito.
Yeah, that's not bad. But as far as the Randall Cobb thing goes, he's basically probably one of my favorite players. Every Packer fan says, Aaron Rodgers or Brett Favre's their favorite player, but Randall Cobb was one of those early fantasy finds his rookie year, and ever since his first big highlight play was the return against the Saints for a touchdown. Like after that, I followed him religiously. So Randall Cobb, it's a touchy player for me. He's one of my favorites, but he just has not been getting it done. I mean, the week 1, I was like, all right, cool. Cobb is back. He's healthy. He's making plays. But it's like, yeah, if you can't stay on the field, like, what good are you? I know there's been trade talks, but I don't know. I don't think that we're going to be going in that direction, sadly. But
all right, enough about the NFC North. I'm vomiting over here. I'm sick of it. I want to talk about some other stuff. Let's get into some quarterbacks. The Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, and Josh Allen each led their respective teams to victory, marking the first time in the Super Bowl era that rookie signal callers combined to go 4-0 in the same week. Tony, I think I know the answer as to who would be the one of these 4 you'd like to have as your starting quarterback if you had to choose from the 4 of them. But tell me, under any scenario outside of Baker Mayfield, would you be starting one of the other 3 at this point?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, if you're desperate on a bye week, maybe you grab Darnold and hope that he can hit a couple deep shots like he did to Robbie Anderson this week. That was encouraging to see him, take some shots downfield. That's something you hadn't seen from him before. But I think Isaiah Crowell doing what he was doing on the ground helped that quite a bit, helped distract the defense from the passing game. And Robbie Anderson was just able to get behind him. But yeah, aside from Baker, and even Baker, I would just put him in the right matchup. I still don't trust Hugh. I want the Browns' weapons more than I want Baker necessarily as my starter. Maybe in like 2 quarterback leagues, something like that. Josh Allen will give you a little bit with his legs, but he's going to make a lot of dumb throws, in that offense for the most part is putrid. I feel bad for that kid because he was just put into – I mean, they got the W this week. Good for them. They got a scrappy defense. It's a lot of why they got the win this week, but that offense is putrid. I mean, Kelvin Benjamin just needs to retire. Remember when Cam was the problem with Kelvin?
Yeah.
Remember? I thought he was the problem, right? Yeah. It's not the fact that you're a wide receiver that runs like a 5.4 40, but yeah, I wouldn't really want any of them as my starter. It's another one of them things that if you're starting one of them, you got bigger problems. Your year's probably getting shot. Quarterback's just too deep. There's too many better options out there.
You brought up Robbie Anderson, and obviously he had 3 catches, but 123 yards on those 3 catches. The 2 of them were for big touchdowns. That was the first touchdown he caught since week 1. In week 1, he had 1 catch for 41 yards and a touchdown. And in between there, 27 yards, 22 yards, 18 yards. It'd be nice if you could trust a guy like that. I mean, that is the ultimate boom or bust player right there. I mean, that's not even as boom as Deshaun Jackson is, and that's a guy you get worried about putting your lineup. So I'm not sure I'm ready to jump on that Robbie Anderson, but I definitely will keep an eye on that a little bit more. We got to see last night Drew Brees become the all-time leading passer in NFL history. Great guy. Great to see that. He threw for 363 yards and 3 touchdowns. And what we saw in that game, Brandon, and Tony, I'll get your opinion on this too. We saw Mark Ingram come back. And essentially we saw Alvin Kamara disappear. Mark Ingram was in for 36 snaps, Kamara 31. Ingram out-touched him 18-9. Now, Kamara was averaging 22.7 touches a game before Ingram came back. Ingram got 3 touches inside the 5-yard line. We know he scored 2 short touchdowns, and Kamara got 0. Brandon, is this the way it's going to be going forward, or was Kamara used so much in the first 4 games they needed to get him some rest? They got up in his game early, and they figured let's run Ingram. Let's get him back in there. Let's give Kamara, a light run. They can't possibly do this with the guy who's been so dynamic over the first 4 weeks, can they?
No, and you basically said exactly my thought process is that Kamara has had to carry the load for the first 4 weeks, and like I knew that I kind of figured they would do this if they got up early in this game, is basically give Kamara a breather, because even Kamara himself last year as a rookie, as great as he did, he still did not carry that type of workload that he did on average over the first 4 games. So to give them that so they can easily, move right back into that rotation that they worked last year that proven to be so effective with Ingram and Kamara. Now, as far as goal line touches goes, I don't know what the statistic of last year's split was with them. I know they both can be used in there, but we know Ingram is more of the thunder to the lightning. But no, I don't think it's a concerning thing. I know a lot of people were freaking out about it, especially guys that need Kamara to have a big game to win their matchups. I've seen a lot of that on running on Twitter today. But yeah, as far as being shell-shocked and worried about Kamara, I have no concerns whatsoever. I think they've seen what worked last year in that offense, and they're going to do everything they can to replicate it.
Cool, Tony. What do you think? More of the same?
Yeah, I'm not really worried about Kamara. I think he still ran a decent amount of routes. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but I remember seeing that he was still running routes. They got up early, and yeah, like you said, they're just pounding Ingram, getting him back into the rhythm of it. I do think that if you were expecting the production you got from Kamara over the first 4 weeks, you were kind of delusional, because Mark Ingram's a good player. He's not just going to sit on the sidelines. He is an effective running back. He looked really good when he had the ball in his hands, and he's going to be involved in the passing game. But I do think this offense is productive enough that I think you could see like a rich man's version of kind of what you got in New England with James White and Sony Michel, where Ingram's going to be more of like your standard running back, but Kamara's going to be running routes, and receptions mean more than carries in fantasy. So somebody's worried about Alvin Kamara, sell him to me. I'm looking at you, Steve. If you listening to this, I'll take him off your hands if you're worried about it. But I'm not worried about Kamara at all. This offense is just too efficient. It was kind of a weird game. I mean, you saw Tre'Quan Smith break out. Michael Thomas really didn't do a ton compared to what you think of Michael Thomas. He had a good game, but you want 8 catches from Michael Thomas most weeks. But I do think most of Alvin Kamara's production is going to come in the passing game, but he showed that he can be highly efficient. He's a special talent. He's got that Jamal Charles gene, that he doesn't need 20, 25 touches to have a great day. He can do it off 15 touches in the right situation, and Sean Payton knows how to get him in the right spots.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned James White. I wasn't planning to talk about him, but since you brought him up and you like to trade, in my Sleeper Wire Pro-Am, I run a team for me, Kevin, and Steve, and I need running back help there. And a guy put in a chat today that James White is available. So I'm pretty deep at wide receiver there. So I'm scrolling through and I'm like, maybe I'll trade Tyler Lockett for. And I'm like, Tyler Lockett's actually been pretty damn good. I don't want to do that. And then I landed on Marvin Jones. So Tony, tell me your opinion. Redraft league, not a dynasty. Am I giving enough for James White by sending Marvin Jones this year, or am I overpaying?
If you can get James White from Marvin Jones, I'd do that. Marvin Jones is good. You got a little bit of a poor man's smaller version of what you have in St. Louis. I always do that. Los Angeles with the Rams, where you want to start all 3 of those guys. Personally, I'd rather move Lockett than Jones, just because I want out of that Seahawks offense. Doug Baldwin has screwed me in too many places, and it might be pouring some hatred over to Tyler Lockett because of that. But I do think Baldwin's going to be more involved. I don't think that Lockett's just going to be a game wrecker anymore. But if you can move either of those guys for James White, I'd do it. It's very rare that you see only 2 guys involved in this Patriots backfield. And they're always in the top 5 in running back points. So give me Sony Michel. You guys know that I've been on him all off season. I have so many shares of Sony Michel. and give me James White. I will take them all day, especially if it's a PPR league or even a half-point league. Yeah, I'll take James White.
Sony Michel's on my list to get to because I know how much you do love him. But before we move on from Lockett, with Baldwin back, Lockett was able to put up 3 for 98 and a touchdown, 17.9 points. Baldwin saw only one target. Now, I have a lot of Baldwin stock, so believe me, I'm not turning into Kevin here and trying to become the Lockett guy. But through 5 weeks, he's got 4 touchdowns. He's put up point totals of 13.4, 14.5, 16.2, 7.8, and 17.9. Jones gets a ton of looks in the red zone. Last week, all he got was that one look in the red zone. He got that touchdown. I was like, oh, here we go. He still finished under 10 fantasy points for the day. And that was kind of my thinking there. I have Odell, and I have Cooper Kupp, and I have I might even be Adam Thielen in that league. So I'm kind of set. And I figured Lockett is the guy who has the higher upside, in my opinion, this year, with the emergence of Galladay, which is the reason I went that way. But, yeah, I agree with you as far as wanting to get James White on my team. It's clear to me he's going to be a factor all year at this point. There's legitimately nobody else to go to. Before we go to Sony Michel, and before we leave talking about the Saints, Tre'Quan Smith showed up big last night as a part of that Drew Brees celebration. And I saw this stat line. In the preseason and regular season combined, Smith has seen 24 targets, which have resulted in 19 receptions for 318 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, we also saw Cam Meredith get some play last night, a couple of big plays as well. This offense in the past has been able to support 2 and sometimes 3 wide receivers. But do you think that it was a one-night deal, or do you think that, hey, we've unleashed Smith, he's going to be the number 2 guy in this offense? Also remember that Ted Ginn Jr. missed the game and was injured. What do we make outside of Michael Thomas? Who's the guy you want? We'll start with you, Brandon. What wide receiver do you want after Michael Thomas in that Saints offense?
I'll tell you what, Tre'Quan Smith looked mighty good. And we've seen what Meredith could do with the Bears in the short amount of time that he was healthy enough to play. And that's one other thing that would concern me too, is the injury proneness of Cameron Meredith. I definitely think that Ted Ginn's time is running low, especially with that young talent showing up. As far as the usage goes and the shift that we saw last night in the passing game, I think that also might have been a little bit of game script. If you're up that big in the first half, you definitely want to see what some of the younger guys got that can perform. And like the stat line you just pushed out with the preseason, we've seen Tre'Quan Smith do it before, at least at a smaller stage, not necessarily regular season. But I'm all about the youth. I think Tre'Quan Smith can etch out a consistent and secondary role to Michael Thomas and be that secondary option when the defense is kind of focused on shutting Michael Thomas down, especially with them running backs.
Tony, who do you want? Second wide receiver after Thomas.
I honestly disagree. I wouldn't want Tre'Quan Smith. I mean, maybe in like a deeper format, like, falafel 16 team. Yeah, you pick him up. But these wide receivers pop up all the time. We've seen a few already through the first few weeks that have come and then kind of faded back a little bit. Mike Williams comes to mind. And do you want to carry them through? The Saints are on a bye this week. So do you want to use like a lot of fab or high priority if you're still doing whatever is it, to pick up Tre'Quan Smith, carry him through his bye week, and then hope that he starts seeing targets? I think with last year, what you saw, and you saw Drew Brees' numbers down as a result of this, because their running game was so effective with Ingram and Kamara, that Thomas last year was great in PPR, but he didn't get a lot of touchdowns because of that running game being so effective. I just think that second spot's kind of a mess. I'm not going to feel comfortable starting most of them any week. And I think Ted Ginn coming back is going to hurt Tre'Quan. Ted Ginn isn't a great player, but he's good at his role. He's good at what he does. And I think that just Tre'Quan kind of kills whatever value Ted Ginn had. Ted Ginn's going to hurt whatever value Tre'Quan has, and then Cam Meredith will have your games every now and then. But personally, I'm not playing that roulette with whoever happens to catch a touchdown that week or get a long play.
That's fair. But you're also a Bears fan, so Cameron Meredith might. You have a little bias there, maybe.
Nah,
I don't
Tony's,
miss him.
he's moved on. Tony's moved on.
I don't miss him.
He's got a pocket full of Tariq Cohen. He's good.
Yep.
So Sony Michel, you brought him up before. In the 2 weeks since he's been basically a featured running back in that offense, he's gotten 25 carries. He's gotten 18 carries. Not seeing any targets, and that's why James White remains so valuable. He's seen one target in the 2 games, and he caught one pass for 12 yards, but 17.2 and 17.5 outputs. I mean, you talked about this backfield already, but go on, gush about Michel a little bit. I know this is a guy you have some dynasty stock in, and you're happy to see that it's paying off.
Yeah. I loved his situation this year. I know some people were like, "Oh, it's a mess," but Buckhead's never been able to stay healthy. So this offseason, I invested heavily in him because, I mean, he got 25 carries. I mean, if you get 20 plus carries in the Patriots offense, you want that running back. And the only thing that was concerning with me with Michel is I wish they'd run him out of the shotgun more. He seemed to be more effective when he was a couple of his big runs came out of the shotgun. These kind of I formation boring plays that the Patriots are doing, I don't really want to see any more of that as much. But yeah, I'm loving what he's been putting out. I do think James White is going to cap his upside a little bit. He's a good receiver. I mean, you saw that at Georgia. So he has the ability to do that. And if something were to happen with White, I do think he has 3-down capability. I don't know that the Patriots are ever going to have a guy that plays like Le'Veon Bell, shares the snaps. Belichick will call some no-name up off of the practice squad and use him in the right role because that's just what he does. But, yeah, I'm ecstatic with his output. I know some people have been saying he's a sell-high candidate and stuff like that, but I don't view him that way. I think he's a great RB2 with RB1 upside. I really wouldn't be shocked if he was a top 12 to 15 running back the rest of the season.
He's caught 100% of his targets. All one that was thrown to him, he has caught.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So far, so good. Let's go over some more running backs. James Conner returned to the top of the fantasy heap this week after having that great week 1. He's been, kind of blah. And Pittsburgh appeared to have gone away from the running game in those couple of games. But he got 21 carries this week, put up 110 yards, 2 more touchdowns. He caught another 4 balls for 75 yards. But we heard that Le'Veon Bell is going to report in week 7. So we're going into week 6. He's going to report for that bye week in week 7. Brandon, do we have 1 week left of James Conner? I mean, traditionally, Pittsburgh goes with one running back. One running back, when he's in there, gets 90-something% of the work. Do you think that they go right back to Le'Veon Bell when he's back in the lineup in week 8?
Oh, I've been thinking about this all day. They were talking about on the radio a lot, and any other podcasts I've been listening to. That's the question, isn't it? Conner seems to be getting the job done. No, he's not the same player that Le'Veon Bell will be, but do you think Bell is going to come back and play like he's got a long-term deal with this team? Is he going to put forth his 100% with the risk of injury? I think there's a fear of him being much more reserved in his gameplay, and he's not going to be the same guy in the electric running back in that backfield that we're used to. And on the other hand, I was thinking as well that James Conner's been good to them. He's done what he could do in the time that he's been given with Bell's absence. And would it be wise of the Steelers to it's kind of like the ex-girlfriend factor. Like, are you just going to stop dating the one you're with just to go back for a little bit longer?
When they look like Le'Veon Bell, you do.
Yeah. Yeah, he's sexy. I'll tell you what. I think if Le'Veon Bell's on the field, he plays all out because that's when you run the risk of getting yourself injured. You can't go out in the field and just try to dial it back because that's when you get hurt. But I do think that at least right away, James Conner will still be involved. There has been some rumors that they'd still be willing to trade him. We'll get to the Philadelphia running back scenario in a second. But Tony, what's your opinion on that Pittsburgh backfield come week 8?
I think Bell comes back and he's Bell. I think when you saw when Williams was there, D'Angelo Williams, he was effective in that offense whenever Bell was out. But when Bell came back, he was on the field. James Conner's good. He's shown some stuff, but he's not Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell is one of the best 3 running backs in the league. And Bell, he might not have his heart with this team, but money's a motivating factor. I love a running back in a contract year, and I usually hate a running back after they get paid. I usually fade them after they get that big contract. But Bell's going to want to come in. He's going to want to put up numbers. He's going to want to show that he has an impact on this offense, especially in the passing game. So, yeah, I think he's going to come out. I think he's going to run hard. Excuse me. I think he's going to play hard. And I think Pittsburgh's going to give him maybe not like a 90% snap share, but 75, 80. He'll be right back to that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you said about Bell. My only point I would throw out there is Conner is a guy that, along with Samuels, that would be considered for the starting role next year. But regardless of Bell saying he still would like a long-term deal with Pittsburgh, I think we all know that's likely not the scenario that's going to happen here. So Pittsburgh might say, hey, this is the guy who's our future, and he has done this, and we have to give him a little bit more run. But, hey, they like to win too. So,
but if you're the Steelers, if you're gonna have Conner next year and you're not planning on having Bell this year, why wouldn't you just run Bell into the ground?
Run him into the ground
rather than risking something happening. It's the same thing. Like I think Mark Ingram's gonna get work in New Orleans because he's probably not gonna be there next year, so they don't care about his long-term viability. I think the Steelers' interest and Bell's interest are gonna intersect. You know, they're gonna they have the same goal, and that's to improve this offense and give you the dimension that Bell gives you. And then Bell was going to want to put up numbers because he's going to want to go to whatever team and say, look at all these receiving numbers I put up. Look how much better this offense was with me. He's going to want to have those stats. I mean, agents use those stats to get you your contract. So I think their interests are aligned in the situation. I think they know it's a business. I think the players, I think they were angry at Bell at the beginning of the season. I think at this point they kind of know. I think Earl Thomas helped his case quite a bit when you saw what happened there. So I think the team's going to be wanting to get back at it, especially with how poor they've looked some of this season. Something just looks off in Pittsburgh, and they still have a great offense. The defense is atrocious. The line is meh, but something just feels off with that team this year, and I think they're going to want to try to get back on track.
Yeah, the old standards, Pittsburgh, Green Bay, even New England got off to that slow start, but now they have 75 different new guys playing wide receiver. They should be fine. But it's been a very interesting start to the NFL season. Let's go over to the other team in Pennsylvania, to Philadelphia, and talk about their situation. Jay Ajayi, out on the IR, torn ACL, and all those Corey Coleman stock. I'm sorry, Corey Coleman stocks. I did that last week. Called him Corey Coleman. All the Corey Coleman stock that I invested in, that I thought would be great. It doesn't feel so great right now for me because he got his opportunity 2 weeks ago, and he didn't do anything with it. He was very average at best. And Wendell Smallwood, who's a guy who for 2 years, you guys know because you listen to the show and you're in the chats with me, I was Mr. Smallwood. That's right. I admit it. I was Mr. Smallwood. And I kind of almost gave up on him. I own him in one dynasty. I'm so pissed off right now. One effing dynasty. Do I still own him?
I got him in both pigs leagues. Come and get him.
Oh, my God. I got all this Corey Clement stock. But
you're welcome.
I also know that Darren Sproles, when healthy, not this Thursday because they're on a short week, when he's healthy, he's going to get touches because when he was healthy at the beginning of the year, he was getting more touches than anybody. Mm-hmm. So are you rushing out? This is Tuesday night if you're all watching this live, or if you're getting it on Wednesday. Some leagues have waivers on Wednesdays. Are you running out and putting, big money or a high waiver priority like you said before, Tony? Brandon and Tony both, are you guys running out for any one of these guys, or are you just like, it's going to be just a mix? It's going to be a who's who this week or that week?
I've been I've liked Corey Clement, and I know that we made that exchange where I traded Clement to you when you wanted a little more stock of him in the Falafel Dynasty League. I like his talent, but he's
we
not
allow
a
you to say
back.
falafel assholes here, by the way. You're allowed to say that.
Oh, love Falafel assholes. Got you. I wasn't sure, but I don't think he's ever going to be the type of lead back. I think he'd be best as a complimentary back or a third down back. He seems to do much better in the passing downs than he does 1-2. But as far as Wendell Small goes, obviously in a league like ours, like the Falafel 16 team league, running backs, a very sought after commodity. And once you lose one, it really hurts your overall chances of even competing. So, I mean, in that type of league, I would say spending a decent amount of fab just for a chance at a guy that has a shot at a lead role in an offense that's relatively above average. But if you're in smaller leagues, I wouldn't even consider it because you should already have those other ends covered.
Hey, remember last year at Falafel when my team was just so much better than everybody else's? Remember that? And I won a championship, remember? And then, like, middle to the end of the season, Jamal Williams became available as a starter running back, and I had more money than everybody, and I didn't even need him, but I bought him anyway. Remember that, Brandon? That was awesome. Like I already had Devonta Freeman, and I already had Alex Collins, and I already had Melvin Gordon, and I just put him up. Didn't you drop him at some point?
Yeah, I rapped about it. It was in my grievance last
That's
year.
right. It was on your Festivus grievance. It was a good year for me. Falafel.
If Brandon drops a running back in Falafel, I pick him up in every other league I have because I think 3 years in a row now he's dropped the guy right before.
Let's see. Let's go back from the top. So you got Jay Ajayi
he was 3 years ahead of the curve with Jay Ajayi.
Prodigal child of Jay Ajayi when he missed the bus and Arian Foster was still on the Dolphins. Terrible decision there, but I mean,
Arian Foster's wrestling wolves these days. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, in hindsight, I mean, Ajayi hasn't been the most ideal of health, but that year he was on fire. Okay, let's call it what it is. Last year, Jamal Williams. Enough said.
Packers fan, no less.
Maybe, I can't remember what was going on my roster at that point. I was just trying to survive. I was very close to relegation, and it was getting scary, but I pulled through. And of course, I have Jamal Williams again this year with Aaron Jones, and that's a great situation. So I don't know. I've been thinking about who
you want both of them?
Yeah, I had a plan there, and it just didn't pan it out. I should have just stuck with my Aaron Jones belief. And the problem with going through the draft is I was either going to take Mark Ingram or Jamal Williams, and of course I took Jamal Williams.
Yeah, should have taken Ingram.
Well, I was looking at what was going to happen. I mean, we're not going to go on. We don't need to go on all that. But for what I was predicting the first 4 weeks, I felt to get a couple wins in. I don't know if I could have sustained that type of roster with having a lead back or RB2 out for 4 weeks and still come out with a couple of wins. I didn't have a roster like Sal going into the draft.
I mean, it's not like I was. It's not like I was just stacked at running back. I also had Julio Jones, and I also had Larry Fitzgerald, and I also had
Eric Ebron,
the greatest tight end in fantasy football, Eric Ebron.
Yeah. Oh, hey.
Oh my God! What a year I had last year.
Yeah. Too bad.
How's it going? How's it going this year?
I'll be honest with you. I'm 3-2 in Falafel this year, and I lost. One of my losses was to Steve when I scored over 130 points. So. In Falafel, 16-teamer, if you get like 100, 106, 110, you had a week, usually win, Brandon, right? Yeah. I scored 130-something points that week. So I'm that close to being 4-1. I was actually 1-2 at one point, and I had never been under 500 in the 4 years that Falafel existed. So I was getting a little nervous. But at 3-2 now with some decent points and Devonta Freeman healthy again, I feel pretty good that I don't know if I can repeat as champion, but I'm definitely not getting relegated this year. We'll see if we can get rid of Kevin and Steve.
It's all about survival for me too.
Yeah, I'm fighting for my life down in junior. I'm 3rd or 4th in points right now, but I'm 1-4. So it's kind of just fighting, staving off relegation. The playoffs are a distant picture. I like my team. We have two flexes in junior because we were smart enough to get rid of kickers.
Who got to make that decision?
They put it on a vote. You guys didn't vote enough, but I pushed Steve into it. You know me. I don't have any leagues with kickers anymore. Every league that I'm in, I've got him to eliminate the kickers.
This one.
You gotta get on. Hey George, where you at? Come make your kicker argument.
Hashtag kickers lives matter.
So
not really.
An interesting signing, or maybe really not that interesting, but an old name. Jamaal Charles was re-signed in the NFL today to the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was waiting for the right team because of all the injuries that are going on in Jacksonville. As we know, Fournette has been in and out of games. He's missed 2 weeks, and he's definitely going to miss this upcoming week. Corey Grant then goes and gets hurt after getting his opportunity. But, man, T.J. Yeldon couldn't ask for a better scenario as a free agent this year. He's getting to show off his skills. And he has been skillful, Yeldon. 10 carries for 53 yards this past week, 10 targets, 8 receptions for 69 yards, and a touchdown. He came in at number 5 running back in half-point PPR this week. You know, can they survive as a playoff team? I think Fournette's going to be back eventually, but you can never trust those legs. This is 2 years in the league, nothing but nagging injuries. Can they survive with Yeldon? Do they realize they need to keep Yeldon and try to re-sign him in the offseason? It's a long way to go before we can make that decision. But right now, I mean, Yeldon's a weekly starter. Correct? Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, Yeldon's a stud as long as Leonard Fournette's out. I actually, in my home league, I had Jamal Williams. This is like week 2 or 3. I made this trade. Fournette was out. I picked up Yeldon that week. I traded him to the Fournette owner for Jarvis Landry. I traded Jamal Williams and Yeldon for Jarvis Landry, and then the guy drops him that week, so I pick him back up. So I've been running him with him in my flex. I had Jordan Howard out this week, so slid him right in. And as long as Fournette's out, I'm going to start him. This offense actually is it's not better without Fournette. I don't want to go that far because Fournette is a special talent when he's on the field, so I'm not going to sit there and act like. But they're more creative without Fournette. I think Fournette just causes them to want to pound the rock. And even Bortles, he had 4 picks this week. Bortles is going to have bad weeks. But if you look at the AFC and how explosive some of the offenses are, they're going to have to put up points. They're going to have to let Blake do it, or they're just going to see a repeat of what they had in the AFC Championship game, where they were just the second half just running Fournette into a pile of guys and then punting the ball. And I think with Yeldon in there and what he gives him in the passing game and the running game, he's making himself some money right now. It's going to be a nice little free agent crop next year with Bell, Coleman, Yeldon. It's going to be really interesting to see where some of those guys go. But I think he's going to be for whatever team misses out on Bell and then whatever team misses out on Coleman, he's going to be a cheaper option, but he's going to make more than he would have if Fournette had been able to play this year.
And Blake Bortles' numbers when Fournette is out and they rely more on him are QB1 numbers legitimately every single time. Even with the 4 interceptions this past week, I think he still finished as QB4 because he passed for 430 yards and he rushed for a touchdown in that game. So if you go back and look at his numbers, they're generally very, very good.
Best value in Superflex or best ball was Bortles this offseason. Sorry, go ahead, Ben.
Now, as far as Yeldon goes, I agree with you for this year. But as far as him going into free agency, I don't know. For some reason, I just thought that it feels like he's going to be the McKinnon of next year. But granted, a little different. McKinnon got hurt, so we didn't necessarily get to see the full usage with him and how he would produce with the 49ers. But just seems like the same type of player. Yeldon's definitely done good with the time that he's had. As a Fournette owner, I'm pissed off about it that he can't stay on the field. And actually, an interesting conversation that's had before. It was between me and our good friend Craig. He was talking about what if the Jags in their playoff window, or what they would think is still their playoff window with that defense. What do you think that they might just cut their loss with Fournette? And
after the season,
I would say, well, not necessarily. No, I mean, obviously,
my early
we
answer is
wanted a
no.
rookie contract.
No.
And when Craig listens to this, Craig likes to come up with these scenarios. He's convinced that Arizona's trading David Johnson and going with Chase Edmonds next year.
When you've seen as much as Craig has in his many years on this earth, you've seen a lot. Yeah, I think as far as Yeldon re-signing with Jacksonville, I don't think they'll be able to afford him. You look at how much money they poured into that defense. But
I wasn't talking about Jacksonville with Yeldon. I was thinking the conversation was that would Le'Veon Bell be the Jags be a Le'Veon Bell sleeper team?
I think
to trade for this year.
I think Bell's way too big of a cap hit for him. I don't even think they have the clear space for this year just to take on the rest of his franchise tag.
Right.
But I do think Bell's going to have to go to a team with a rookie quarterback. I really like the idea of Houston. I think if you put Nuke and Deshaun and Bell on the same offense, that would just be nasty. But you're going to have to pay him what he's going to want and demand on the open market at running back. You're going to have a quarterback on a rookie contract. That's the only way it'll work. So I think Houston, the Jets, team like that, will probably be for Le'Veon Bell. But Fournette's on a rookie deal, so I don't see any reason that Jacksonville won't. They're going to need a good running back. I wouldn't be surprised to see them, draft a guy in the 3rd round next year, because they're going to need somebody good behind Fournette. But Fournette's he's a special talent when he's actually able to play. So I don't see any reason why they would cut with him now on his 2nd contract. Do they cut bait with him? Probably. But if he keeps this up.
I didn't mean cut bait as in like cut him off the team. I just meant kind of start looking for a replacement, especially if he can't stay on the field. That's the kind of thing I was going after.
Oh, look!
All right, so I have a surprise guest coming in. This is the Fantasy Football Funhouse / Falafel House's biggest fan, and he's also got the biggest head. Look at the size of that head. I don't know where he's walking right now. It's like he's in the basement of the kitchen at work or something.
Yeah.
Kareem, Mr. Showtime himself, Kareem is here. What is up, Kareem?
What is up? I just finished work. I came, sat down, saw you lovely gentlemen holding it down on the pod. So I just wanted to join in, see what was going on.
Now, when Michael Strahan sees this, I don't want to be sued for the gap in Kareem's teeth. I know that is his trademark, but Kareem was born this way, and there's nothing we can do about it. This is what the man looks like, Michael. All right? So just you got enough jobs. You don't need to sue this little show. Hey, Kareem, how'd you feel on Sunday night, 4th and 1 at the Texas 42, punting the football?
I feel like we needed a new coach right then and there. That's exactly how I felt. I couldn't understand, and I didn't know the conversion percentage was so high, but I knew that we've been pretty good on 4th and 1 ever since we had Zeke. And for them to roll something that was so easy, it was like at absolute worst, the thing that happened to you would have happened to you anyway. So why not take the gamble? We were driving. We were moving at will, and you decided to punt the ball back. Why at that point? Like, it's not like the Cowboys defense has been good. It's been a lot better, but they still give up big games every once in a while. And DeAndre Hopkins looked like he was playing a game of Madden at one point. I've never seen somebody spin out of so many tackles at one time. I just couldn't understand it at that point.
You got nuked.
I was baffled.
Well, Jerry Jones came out and said something. It was the first time that I think he's actually criticized the coach over there. And I heard some rumblings about, maybe Sean Payton could be available this offseason and maybe he could land in Dallas.
If I'm the Cowboys, I back the Brinks truck up to Lincoln Riley's house and just pay him more than the entire state of Oklahoma can afford to come in and do something with that offense.
Well, in that same game, we saw that Lamar Miller was active but did not see the field. And Alfred Blue got all the touches. He got 20 carries. He only managed 46 yards. He got 8 targets, 8 receptions for 73 yards. Again, targets, waiver wire targets. Is Alfred Blue a guy you're rushing out to add this week? I also own him in Falafel, in case Kareem and Brandon want to know. Kareem's team was really good. Got his ass whooped this week, but he was 4-0 coming into this week. But how do you guys feel about Alfred Blue and Lamar Miller? Word is Deonta Foreman, when healthy, which is most likely 2 weeks away, will be a full go. Is this another backfield that's becoming a mess? And is there a reason with Foreman coming back you won't add Blue? Anybody?
Okay. Yeah. Alfred Blue. I don't really want any part of Alfred Blue. Like I picked him up in Falafel Assholes, 14-team dynasty. 22, I think we roster. So I picked him up in there. But really, in redraft, the only stash that I'm doing is Foreman to hope that he adds some spark to this running game. But Texans just can't run the football. That's why I love DeAndre Hopkins. God, he's so much fun to own. I love Kiki Cootie. Has been looking like a beast past couple weeks. And then Will Fuller's a stud when he's out there. This team is going to have to throw the football to move on offense because they cannot run it at all.
Kiki Cootie has played 137 of 146 snaps in the last 2 weeks, 94%. He's seen 22 targets, which is a 25% share of the wide receiver targets, 17 receptions for 160 yards and 1 touchdown over his first 2 games, including 11 receptions, a rookie record or a record for playing in your first game in the NFL a week ago. We've brought him up on the show before because way back when we had Elliot Christon in the preseason, we asked him for a deep target in rookie drafts, and he brought up Kiki Cootie, and I went and grabbed him in a few places where I could. And he's been great for me. And absolutely right now, I agree with you, Tony. It's a wide receiver offense. It's not a running back offense. Fuller's, damn it, always banged up. Yeah. And just when I finally think maybe I'll get Brandon to trade for him in the Falafel Assholes League, he's a little nicked up again. Brandon wants to get pennies on the dollar, and I'm just not letting him have it. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, that's because I somehow turned my shitty-ass team around from last year, and now I'm looking like a competitor. So
who's in first place in that league?
It's after
Mike.
This week, it would be Mike. Yeah, I know he borrowed a player from his alliance.
Yeah, he borrowed Breeze to beat me.
Yeah, so Mike's got the number 1 spot, and I think me and Tony are both 4-1 now.
Yep.
Yeah. When I looked last, Tony, you were 5-0, but that got changed when they updated the. Were you 5-0 until they changed the borrowed player?
Because we have Kevin instituted the rule this offseason. We have an asshole and we have an alliance, and you can steal a player from your asshole, whoever that is. The masshole is my asshole. And then you can borrow a player from your alliance. So yeah, once you adjusted for that, I got my first L this week. Mike, he's another one of those fantasy hustlers. Him and Corey both. They just constantly competing. Every league I'm in drives me nuts.
I was wondering, Sal, and the group, what did y'all think about Watson and how much he got banged up in that game against Dallas? Can he hold up all year long?
Well, he's day-to-day right now. I think he'll be okay. He's a tough kid. Play NFL in this league, you play hurt. You know, I don't think I saw anything that would be damage enough to keep him out. But yeah, he's obviously got the injury last year. It was a non-contact deal in practice, but I think he'll be fine for now. He's got tons of weapons. He used all the tight ends as well. There's no one tight end on that team I would want on my fantasy team, but for Watson, he uses them well enough to keep his balance. So I think he'll be fine.
The one thing I'll say about Watson, Russell Wilson needs to teach these kids a class on how to avoid hits, because Watson just doesn't avoid hits. He dances on the sideline rather than going out, and gets usually hit out of bounds. And I do worry about him taking those hits constantly. He's not the only quarterback that I've seen that can take those hits consistently is Cam Newton, and that's because Cam Newton is
big guy.
He's not a human. he is superhuman. He makes it look easy. He brushes off those hits, but Watson's just not that guy. He's got to learn to avoid hits, especially with this offensive line, that he's going to get sacked in the pocket. When he's moving around and stuff, he's just got to know when to throw it away or when to jump out of bounds and stuff like that if you're wanting for his long-term viability. It's one of the reasons that I had a couple Watson shares this offseason, and I sold him because he was huge. He had huge hype. I got great returns for him. I think I got Kirk Cousins in a first in one league, and that was what concerned me, is that he just cannot avoid those hits.
Let's head over to Seattle, where Chris Carson owners were happy to see that he was coming back, only to find out now he's at a timeshare with Mike Davis. Rashad Penny can't even get on the field at this point. Now we have Mike Davis as a problem over there. Now Carson managed to get 116 yards on 19 carries and caught his only target for 11 yards, but another 12 of those carries went to Mike Davis for 68 yards. Do you guys own any part of this backfield anywhere? And if you do, what are you doing with it?
I do own Carson in a 16-team league. It's 2 flexes, and he's my first flex. 16-team leagues, as we all know, you really don't have a bunch of good options in those leagues. So I got to roll him out there as often as I can and hope he can continue, putting up yards and hopefully get a few touchdowns here and there. But overall, I mean, I have no choice, especially in a league of that size.
Yeah, in a 16-teamer, he's definitely somebody you play on a weekly basis because it's just out of necessity. What about you, Brando?
Yeah, same thing. I was going to say out of necessity, and you're those type of backfields, unless it's I know the age-old thing to stay away from the Patriots backfield, especially last year because they used just so many. You never know who's going to boom that week. This year it seems a little more clear-cut with Michelle and White, but as for the Seahawks backfield, I don't think I own one share of one of them running backs. I think I have a little bit of Penny, hoping that he can, switch up to $1. Haha, dad joke. Not even a dad.
Wow, you're not a dad. And I'm gonna have to look at the time. Just let Kevin know what to edit out of the podcast.
There you go. But overall, those type of backfields I typically try to steer away from. Though, just like how Kareem said, sometimes we don't have a choice. But if there's a choice there, I'm kind of staying away from those.
Well, let's talk about it. Tony, you got a point you want to make on those guys?
No, I just don't understand what Seattle's doing. Doesn't make any sense to me. You bring in Brian Schottenheimer. I don't understand why anybody thinks that he should be an offensive coordinator. You take a running back in the first round. You don't give him touches. I have Rashad Penny and Pigs too. Luckily, my team's awful there, so I can kind of wait him out and hope that maybe next year they use him. And I traded my only other share of him because I'm done with it. I don't want to deal with that backfield. I think if Mike Davis gets hurt, then Carson's probably a decent enough play. Bye weeks, you're going to get some heavy bye weeks coming up. And if Chris Carson is out for some reason, Mike Davis is probably a decent enough play. But if they're both healthy, I'll stay away. I don't want no piece of it.
Oh, a backfield that's almost as frustrating. And it's one, Tony, that I know you have stock in many different ways. And that's the Indianapolis Colts backfield. I know in the preseason you were buying up Hines, and then you were buying up a lot of Wilkins. And Wilkins,
a lot of Wilkins.
Wilkins looked good on a couple of carries this past week. I don't know what's going on with Kareem over there. The mousetraps and some shit going on. But the guy whose role I think is the most secure right now is Nyheim Hines. Even when Marlon Mack is healthy, it comes back. And I know that's the one guy that I'm playing right now in that backfield. And I actually started him over Chris Carson this past week. So thank God he had a ton of receptions and a full PPR. That paid off for me. How do you feel, Tony? It's only week 6. Guys still need to get healthy. Do you agree? Do you think that the role is secure for Hines the way he's catching the ball?
Yeah, I think Hines is the guy to start there. Like you said, I have a lot of Wilkins stock, but that really had a lot more to do with the fact that he was so cheap. I mean, most of these auctions I got him for like $1, and it was just a bet against Marlon Mack. I've never been a big Marlon Mack guy. He's one of those running backs that look great in highlights, but can't make the consistent play. I think that's a lot of the reason why Frank Gore played a lot over him, and Frank Gore is why he's playing in Miami right now. Is Gore's not explosive. He is eternal. He is Gore, but he's not anything special at this time. But he just does the right things, and coaches love that. They love it when a guy can turn a 2-yard carry into a 5-yard carry, and I never saw that with Matt going back to his college tape. So I don't think he's going to be a huge factor. Honestly, I don't want any part of this backfield besides Hines. And even if Matt comes back and he's involved in the passing game, then I'm not really going to be that high on Hines. But if I had to pick one, it'd be him. Wilkins is decent. He lacks explosiveness. He can get caught from behind way too easily.
All right, guys, believe it or not, Kareem, I know you just joined us, but we have been going for an hour and 5 minutes, and this would be at the point where Steve would be slapping his watch like this and telling me let's go. So we're gonna wrap it up. We're gonna go down the line, start with Brandon. Give us a final thought. Tell people where they can find you on social media, and I want you to tell me, and even though we're only 5 weeks in, who will be fantasy MVP for 2018. You got a head start of already watching for 5 weeks. Go ahead, Brandon.
Brandon DePaul. You can find me on Twitter at bdepaul09. You cut out a little bit there, so I don't know if I missed some of that stuff. But
just give me all the social media stuff and tell me who your fantasy football MVP will be at the end of 2018.
Gotcha. Now, are we talking fantasy football MVP, like who scored the most points, or just who was owned on the most championship teams?
Yeah, who's going to be the guy that you feel is going to, I guess, help win the most championships?
Well, then that's an easy answer. I got to go with my boy Patrick Mahomes, because he was taken at a great value in probably a lot of drafts, even as deep as quarterbacks are. But he's playing like a top 3 quarterback in this league right now, and I think he'll keep it up all season. But I got a lot of bias love for him. But that's my answer, Patrick Mahomes.
Well, thank you, Brandon, for joining us. The original Brandon DePaul, the original Falafel House. Kareem the Dream. Where can people find you? What the hell are you doing with yourself? And who's your fantasy MVP?
Al Kareem Ferguson. They can find me on Twitter at King Showtime 44. That's pretty much the only social media pretty much I use right now. I think my fantasy MVP, and I'm probably going to steal it from Tony, but Sony Michel. I think you got him late. You got him in the later round. You kind of had to see how that backfield played itself out. And he has a clear-cut role. And as long as they continue to give him the ball, I think he will be the fantasy MVP this year.
Very good. Tony, why don't you round it out?
You can follow me at Mr. MeeseeksFF on Twitter. I'm a terrible follow, but you can give that a shot if you want. Maybe if I'm feel up to it, maybe I'll write something for the Fantasy Football Funhouse site. No promises there. I got my once every 9 month quota. And as far as the MVP, as far as the MVPs, Al Kareem he stole my pick. It was going to be Michelle, but because that's my boy, bias. But I actually want to go with one of your guys this season. I got to give you props for this call, Travis Kelce. I think when you look at the advantage he gives you at tight end, that's how you win championships, is having those, especially in your smaller, like 10 to 12 man leagues. If you have Travis Kelce, you have a 7 to 10 point advantage every week against your opponent. And that can be huge, especially in the playoffs and the way Mahomes is playing, slinging it. I was skeptical of Kelce going into this offseason. I wanted to see it with Mahomes, but now that I've seen it, and then, like I said, I got to give you props for having him over Gronk. That was a ballsy call. I didn't see a lot of people having that, but that'd be my fantasy MVP.
I always try to find somebody to put over Gronk, mostly to piss off Kevin, but Kelce, but Kelce has the right mix of athletic talent and I don't give a shit. right? You know, he's got that. He really does. There's a great ESPN piece on him and his brother coming up as youngsters playing football in high school and college. I recommend you go watch it because he has the attitude to go with the athletic ability. Of course, you want something to say? You could say something. You had something else to say?
No, that's it. I'm done.
Of course, you can always find me on Twitter at LetoSal, LETOSAL. My usual co-host, Steve Marcus at Sidski. Congratulations once again to the Marcus family on their beautiful baby girl, Posey Ann. Kevin Cotillo.
God, she looks like her mom.
Thank God, right? Kevin Cotillo, who is now at Kevin Cotillo. If you didn't know, he's no longer Wally Central on Twitter. And, of course, I believe your fantasy MVP is the Fantasy Football Funhouse. So come back, listen to us every single time. You can find us at FF Funhouse on Twitter. And as Kevin would always say, add some kind of charitable donation to your fantasy football playing. Take a league entry fee. Play a little DFS. You win some money. Donate that money somewhere. Give back. Feel good about playing fantasy football and throw a little bit of money back out there. Join us again Friday morning for the preview show. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a good day.
Take care. It's a pleasure.
Bye, guys.